I have never forgotten that morning. A seemingly ordinary morning when I was sitting in my Nashville office, sipping coffee while reviewing the marketing plan for a major project. I was in a good mood. Everything was falling into place. Life at 29 finally felt like it was starting to bloom after years of grinding. But then, my phone rang. The screen lit up. Tyler, my younger brother. I hadn't even picked up yet, but a sinking feeling had already crept into my chest, as if some instinct was warning me that this call wasn't going to be good. Tyler rarely called me unless he needed something, and usually that something was very big, and of course, very unreasonable. The moment I held the phone to my ear, I heard Tyler's voice. No greeting, no pause, no breath, just a calmness so brazen it made my skin crawl. "We're moving in this Friday. Mom already agreed." I froze. For a second, I thought I misheard him. I stared at the phone screen as if it had betrayed me. I couldn't even manage a what? I just sat there, numb, a strange mix of shock and cold paralysis running down my spine. I tried to stay calm, tried to keep my voice as neutral as possible when I asked, "Moving in? Where?" "Tyler, what are you talking about?" "Moving into your beach house, obviously." His voice was light, casual, as if taking over a $500,000 property was as trivial as picking up a loaf of bread from the store. Then he said something that made the blood in my veins turn to ice. "Mom said you barely use it. Plus, she already gave us the door code." I swear, in that moment, my nose stung with anger. Not the kind of anger that explodes, but the deep, lingering kind. The kind people feel after a lifetime of being dismissed, overlooked, and treated like their hard work means nothing. You know what hurts the most? Not that Tyler wanted to move in, but that my own mother gave him the code. She allowed someone into my house, a home I worked my ass off to buy, without asking me, without even telling me. I forced each word out. "Tyler, no one asked for my permission." Tyler laughed, the kind of laugh that makes you want to crush your phone. A smug, confident laugh, the laugh of someone who sees you as nothing more than a talking ATM. "Oh, come on, Alina, don't be dramatic. It's just temporary. You're doing so well. You can share a little with family. Mom says you're very understanding." Ah, my mother. Always my mother. Tyler kept talking, but it all turned into a faint buzzing in my ears. My whole body felt hot with anger. Those two words, "Mom says," were salt on a wound I thought had long scarred over. I gripped my pen so tightly I thought it would snap. That beach house, the home I spent nearly 10 years working toward. 70-hour work weeks, turning down vacations, outings, even basic rest. A place I dreamed of calling home, my sanctuary after a draining, exhausting adulthood. And to them, it was nothing more than a free rental. What enraged me most was the sheer audacity. Tyler treated my house as if it already belonged to him. My mother treated my assets as communal property, and both treated my decision like it was worthless. I took a deep breath, trying not to scream into the phone. "No. Tyler, you are not allowed in my house. I do not agree to anything." He went quiet for a moment, then replied in a tone as if I were the unreasonable child throwing a tantrum. "Can you stop being selfish? We already rented a U-Haul. Mom said you'd understand." I'd understand? Funny how she didn't understand my feelings when she handed out my house code like a coupon. I clenched the phone. "Mom said that?" I asked, my voice cold as steel. Inside me, something cracked. I wasn't 19 anymore. No longer the daughter who could be manipulated by family comes first. I had worked too hard to build a life where I didn't have to bear the consequences of other people's mistakes, especially Tyler's never-ending ones. My voice turned sharp, every word like stone. Tyler, if you step into my house without permission, I will call the police. The line went silent. I knew the shock had hit him. And you know what came next? Not an apology, not remorse, not even acknowledgement. But his voice, lower, sharper. You wouldn't dare. Oh, he was wrong. He was very, very wrong. I hung up without another word. I opened my laptop immediately, logged into the security system of the beach house. I changed every lock code, activated intrusion alerts, and set the system to auto-call the police if anyone attempted unauthorized entry. When the screen flashed secure, my whole body shook, not from fear, but from something I had never allowed myself to feel. Relief. For the first time in my life, I didn't follow the usual script of sacrifice, tolerate, endure my family forced on me. For the first time, I chose myself, but I also knew. From the moment I changed that code, from the moment I dared say no, from the moment I said the words, I will call the police, the real war had only just begun. After that horrific phone call, I sat frozen in front of my laptop. But instead of feeling angry right away, I felt familiar. A painfully old feeling, like a wound that had never truly healed. I realized something. Tyler didn't magically wake up one day believing he had the right to take my house. He was taught that since childhood. And the person who taught him was my mother. I grew up in a family where Tyler was always the golden one, and I was the background. Tyler, the only son, the hope of the family. Me, the daughter, which automatically meant I had to give in, sacrifice, and help your brother. Since I was 10 years old, I was raised on one constant line. Alina, you have to think of your brother. Not once, not during a tough season, but constantly, for 20 straight years. Even the smallest things started from there. When Tyler wanted a new toy my mother couldn't afford, Alina, let your brother have it. You don't need it. At first I thought, okay, maybe it's just a little sacrifice. But that little grew with time, and eventually it became an unnamed duty, an unspoken rule. Tyler had the right to demand. I had the obligation to give. By the time I was 16, the first blow to my self-worth landed. I had spent a year and a half working after school, making coffee, waiting tables, wrapping gifts, to save up $3,000 for my dream of going to college. One night my mom walked into my room, her voice tired and heavy. Tyler needs to make a car payment. He's struggling. Let him borrow your savings, okay? I remember saying, but I worked so hard for that money. Her tone instantly changed, colder, heavier. Is that how you treat family? When did you become so selfish? And you know what hurts the most? I gave her the money. I gave it all. And Tyler? He never thanked me, never paid me back, never even acknowledged it. I told myself, it's fine. He's having a tough time. Helping is what family does. What I didn't know was that it was only the beginning of a long, endless cycle of being drained. When I turned 18 and started college, Tyler got into trouble again. A few $1,000s in credit card debt. My mother called while I was sitting in my dorm room. Alina, you're doing better than him now. Help him pay it off. We're family. I said no. Not because I didn't love my brother, but because I was living off instant noodles, juggling 3 part-time jobs just to stay in school. My mom went silent for 3 seconds, then delivered the line that sliced right through me. I'm disappointed in you. 2 months later, Tyler still couldn't pay the debt, and my mom called again. If you don't let him use a credit card under your name, he'll get sued. You have to help him. He's your brother. I remember the tightness in my throat. If I said yes, I'd destroy my credit. If I said no, I'd remain the ungrateful daughter. I still said no. And my mother didn't speak to me for 2 months. All because I refused to let Tyler use my name and credit score like some protective talisman. In the years that followed, Tyler crashing my car, Tyler using my card to buy concert tickets, Tyler asking for a little money and disappearing became normal. And my mother's chorus never changed. He's a man. He has more pressure. He only made a mistake. Help him out. You're stronger. You're more capable. You need to support your brother. I believed it. I thought I owed it to my family. I thought helping Tyler was my responsibility. But the truth? I was raised to be a life raft for someone who never wanted to learn how to swim. So when I finally bought the beach house, the one thing in my life I built entirely on my own, without borrowing, begging, or leaning on anyone, Tyler and my mother still saw it as a shared family prize. I earn, they spend, I build, they claim. I set boundaries, they call me cruel. No wonder Tyler said, "We're moving in on Friday." To him, it was completely normal, because all his life, my mother taught him, what Alina has is yours too. Your sister is responsible for you. You're the son. You deserve priority. And me? I was nothing but the anchor keeping Tyler's ship afloat. But no one ever asked how many times I had to drown to keep that ship from sinking. That day in the office, after hanging up on Tyler, I stared down at my hands. The same hands that once carried food trays, typed marketing campaign drafts, and later signed the papers for the house of my dreams. The hands that built the life I have today. And I asked myself, why have I spent my entire life letting people control me simply because they're family? Family isn't a free pass to invade, take, or manipulate. Family isn't an excuse for someone to live irresponsibly while you pay the price. Family is not a burden you are obligated to carry forever. I realized something I should have seen long ago. They don't need me. They need what I have. And that's not love. That's abuse disguised as family. That day, for the first time, I felt a new kind of anger. Sharp, powerful, undeniable. Like something buried for years had finally clawed its way to the surface. I faced the truth head on. My mother never saw me as equal to Tyler. Tyler has never been responsible for anything. Neither of them has ever respected my effort or my assets. And the most frightening part? They truly believe they are entitled. That's why the call, "We're moving in Friday," wasn't surprising. It was the result of 20 years of unconditional sacrifice that I never stopped. Until today. After changing every code to the beach house, I tried to get back to work, but my mind was a complete wreck. Tyler was probably furious, my mother too, and I knew they wouldn't let this go easily, but I didn't expect the next call to come from neither of them. It was Jenna, Tyler's girlfriend. When her name popped up on the screen, I hesitated. We had met a few times during family dinners. Jenna was sweet, gentle, but also a little naive. We were never close, but I never had a reason to dislike her. I pressed the phone to my ear. "Alina?" Her voice was small and shaky, tense, timid, as if she was afraid of something. "Hi, Jenna. What's going on? She took a deep breath, and those 5 seconds of silence felt like a century. Alina, I need to tell you something. Her voice trembled. I thought this whole mess was between Tyler and my mother. I didn't expect Jenna to be the first person to loosen the knot. What's wrong? I asked, trying to stay calm. And then Jenna said something that froze the blood in my veins. Tyler lied to me. Lied to you. Lied to everyone. I shot up from my chair. What do you mean? I thought, you agreed to let us stay at the beach house. Tyler told me you were happy to help. I even asked him, are you sure Alina said yes? And he insisted that you were the one who offered. I bit my lips so hard I tasted blood. Of course. Of course Tyler would do that. He had never told the truth when the truth didn't benefit him. Jenna continued, her voice cracking. When I saw the door code didn't work, I asked Tyler why. That's when he finally admitted that you had never agreed, and that you were angry. Angry? I let out a bitter laugh. You're right. I am. Jenna exhaled, like she had been holding a weight on her chest. I'm sorry, Alina. Honestly, I didn't know. If I had known he never asked you, I wouldn't have gone along with it. I sat down, my hands trembling. Outside the office window, people were still walking around, laughing, going about their day. Meanwhile, I was here, listening to someone outside my family tell me the truth that people inside my family never would. Jenna went on. Tyler is really upset. He said you're selfish, that you have plenty, but won't help your own family. And your mom is taking his side. There it was. The old, familiar pain that still sliced like a newly sharpened blade every time it resurfaced. I asked, what are you planning to do? Jenna stayed quiet for a long time. I could hear her shaky breathing, like she was fighting herself. I don't want to move into a place where the owner doesn't want us there. It doesn't feel right. I told Tyler we should find somewhere else. But what about him? He said, even if you're upset, you'll come around. Because you always do. It felt like she slapped me through the phone. Worse than Tyler disrespecting me was that he believed I wouldn't fight back. He believed I would buckle under family pressure, that I would fall into the same cycle I'd been stuck in for 20 years. Jenna spoke again. Alina, I think you should know something else. Tyler told everyone you're being dramatic, that you have money but won't share. Your mom added that you don't care about your family. I closed my eyes, jaw clenched. Ah, the same old song. The same family helps each other speech they only pulled out when they wanted something from me. I asked Jenna, do you know? I told Tyler very clearly that he cannot come into my house. Yes, I know. After he confessed, I realized nothing he said was true. Jenna paused for a few seconds, then took a deep breath. And there's something else. Tyler still plans to go. Even with the new codes, even with the alarm. He said, just go. Once we're there, she'll have to open the door. I froze. Tyler had never changed. He lived his entire life on the belief that other people, especially me, would always cave in for the sake of family. But Jenna wasn't done. She said something that sent a chill down my spine. Alina, I don't think this is going to end peacefully. Tyler is really angry. Your mom, too. They think you're making a big deal out of nothing. I took a deep breath to keep my voice steady. Jenna, thank you for calling, truly. I just wanted you to know the truth before things get worse. And Alina, her voice dropped. I think you should prepare yourself. Tyler isn't the type to stop. I placed my phone on the desk and sat in silence for a long time. Jenna had confirmed what I didn't want to believe. Tyler wasn't just crossing my boundaries. He believed he was entitled to do so. And my mother believed it too. They didn't think they were wrong. They thought I was, for daring to say no. That was the moment I finally understood. This time, they would fight to drag me back into the role I had always been forced to play. The one who sacrifices everything for the family. And me? For the first time in my life, I was ready to fight to escape that role. The next part, where everything finally exploded, started when they actually showed up at my beach house with a U-Haul. And the alarm went off. I thought I was mentally prepared. I thought that after Jenna's phone call, I could predict what would happen. But no, nothing could have prepared me for that day. That morning, I woke with a heaviness in my chest. I had tossed and turned all night, half of me wanting to believe Tyler would reconsider, the other half knowing he never would. I opened the security camera app on my laptop. The beach house was perfectly quiet. No one there, no strange cars, no movement. A peaceful morning, but the kind that comes right before a storm. I worked from my apartment, trying to focus on deadlines, but my hand kept drifting to the security tab every few minutes. 11 a.m. Ting, 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 ting. That familiar sound. Not email, not a message. A level 1 security alert. I shot up, heart pounding so hard it hurt. My fingers shook as I opened the live feed. And then I saw them. A white U-Haul parked right in front of my beach house. Tyler's truck, my mother, Jenna, and 2 men I didn't recognize. All standing in front of my house. All unloading boxes from the truck. All preparing to move in. All treating my property as if it belonged to them. I froze in front of the screen. My hands went ice cold. For 5 long seconds, the only thing I could hear was my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. Then, wee whoa, the alarm blared violently from the speakers around the house. Everyone jumped. My mother clamped her hands over her ears. Tyler shouted something, but the noise turned everything chaotic. On the screen, the system flashed. Unauthorized entry. Police alert activated. I had never seen anything so tragic and absurd at the same time. My mother rushed to the door. She entered the code. Denied. She tried again. Denied. She hit the keypad. Still denied. Tyler yelled something, threw a box onto the ground, and pulled out his phone. He called me. I answered. Alina! Turn this damn alarm off. He was screaming so hard his voice cracked. I spoke slowly, every word heavy as stone. No. Tyler roared. You're insane. We're standing right in front of the house. Open the door. That is not your house, I said, my voice cold as steel. That is my house, and I told you clearly. Do not come. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Do you want to embarrass the whole family? Do you know the neighbors are watching? I let out a soft, bitter laugh, the kind that comes from being wounded too many times. Tyler, I'm not blowing anything out of proportion. I'm just protecting my property. My mother snatched the phone from him and screamed into it. Alina, open this door. I already told you. If the house is empty, let your brothers stay. What is wrong with you? How did you become so cruel? Ah, the same old script. When they do wrong, I must feel guilty. When they invade my boundaries, I must apologize. When they want something, I must sacrifice. But this time, I wasn't that person anymore. I lowered my voice, but each word was sharp as a blade. You are trespassing on property I legally own. The The system already contacted the police. If you and Tyler don't leave, you accept the consequences yourselves. The silence that followed. I could hear the ocean waves through the camera microphone. Then Tyler came back, face red with fury. You won't actually call the cops. Right then, I heard the faint wail of a patrol car approaching. My mother turned around, face draining of color. Tyler stood frozen, stunned that the police were really coming. A part of me ached, but another part felt free. Free from 20 years of being treated like a doormat. A moment later, the camera captured 2 officers stepping out of the car and walking toward them. One of them spoke to my mother, and she started rambling furiously, pointing at my door, pointing at the camera like I was the criminal. Tyler folded his arms, scowling. And me? I steadied myself and answered my phone when one officer called through the security system. We're at Ocean View Drive. Please confirm. Are you the owner? Yes. They're saying they had implied permission from the family. Is this true? No. I nearly bit through my lip. I said no many times. I have audio, messages, camera footage. Would you like to file a report? I took a deep breath. I knew this moment would change everything. After today, I would no longer be the good daughter, the understanding one, the one who always sacrificed. I would become the villain in their story, the ungrateful one, the cruel one. But a second later, I understood. If I didn't protect myself today, I never would. I said, yes, I want to file a report. I saw my mother stagger back like someone had punched her in the chest. Tyler stared into the camera, eyes burning with hatred. But I didn't tremble anymore. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was doing something I should have done a long time ago, choosing myself. And this was only the beginning. The next part, when everything truly spiraled, was the backlash. My family's fury, the flood of insults from relatives, the social media storm, and Alina being labeled the traitor. When I said the words, yes, I want to file a report, a heavy silence froze the entire world. Not a calm silence, but a dense, suffocating one. Thick with shock, anger, and a kind of desperate disbelief from the people standing at my front door. If you've ever seen the expression on someone's face when they realize their power no longer works, you'd know exactly how Tyler looked in that moment. It was the look of someone watching an unspoken family rule crumble. A rule they had used their entire lives to control me. Through the camera, I watched the 2 officers straighten and position themselves in front of my mother and Tyler. One of them glanced at the door, then up at the camera, and nodded to his partner. My mother lunged forward, her voice blasting through the microphone. This is a family matter, not police business. One officer replied calmly, Ma'am, when there is a trespassing complaint, it is our business. I saw her freeze for half a second, then continue shouting, But I'm her mother. I have every right to be here. This is our house. Do you have documentation showing ownership, ma'am? The officer asked. My mother snapped her head toward the camera as if looking straight into my eyes. Her face twisted with fury. Alina, say something. Tell them I have the right to be here. I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. But I knew, if I wavered even an inch, everything I'd held firm on would collapse. This is my house, I said slowly. I've made myself very clear. They do not have permission to be there, and I want to file the report. On the screen, my mother's face contorted with rage. She jabbed her finger toward the camera and screamed, You ungrateful daughter! You called the police on your own mother? Tyler stepped forward, pulling her back, trying to look composed. But his eyes, bloodshot, burning like someone swallowing fire. He turned to the officers. "My sister is being dramatic. We have implied permission." One officer looked at Jenna, who was standing far away from the group, and asked, "Ma'am, can you confirm that?" Jenna didn't speak. Her eyes were wide with fear. Then she shook her head. I held my breath as she said quietly, "No." Alina never agreed. Tyler lied. Tyler whipped around, glaring, "Shut up!" But the officers had heard. They wrote it down. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just a family dispute anymore. Tyler completely snapped, shouting into the camera, "Alina, open the door! You're destroying this family!" I answered with a voice colder than steel. "No, this family destroyed me." One officer separated them, asking each person to stand aside so he could take their information. Tyler argued. My mother screamed. Jenna stood curled into herself, unsure where to go. The officer called me again. "How would you like to proceed? A warning? Or an official report?" I closed my eyes. A long breath escaped my chest, the kind that sounded like something in my heart cracked. This was it, the exact moment I knew. There was no going back. All those years I had stepped aside. I chose fake peace. I compromised, even when each compromise carved away another piece of me. But today, I had nothing left to give. Years of being used, years of being dismissed, years of never being protected, hardened into a cold, clear resolve. I opened my eyes and spoke firmly. I want a formal report, for all three of them. For a split second, the camera captured my mother collapsing onto the stone bench by the door, clutching her head, screaming, "My daughter is dead. She's not my daughter anymore." I heard it, and felt both pain and emptiness. Because I knew she wasn't hurting over right or wrong. She was hurting because she lost control. The officers began preparing the reports. Tyler accepted his citation, face red and trembling with rage. One of the men with them was instructed to leave immediately. I watched everything through the screen. My mother still screaming, Tyler still threatening under his breath, Jenna standing far away, covering her face. And after nearly an hour of chaos, they finally began loading everything back onto the U-Haul. The sun was beating harshly over them, harsh enough that even through the screen, I could feel the scorch. They worked in silence, a frightening kind of silence. In Tyler's eyes, there was something I didn't dare name, but I knew what it wasn't. It wasn't remorse. It wasn't accountability. It was hatred. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. Just lighter, a little lighter. Because for the first time, I had chosen to stand with myself. When the U-Haul finally left the driveway and the beach house returned to its quiet stillness, I collapsed into my chair and covered my face with my hands. I whispered, "It's done. It's finally done." But that was an illusion. The next second, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You'll regret this. Family never forgets." A chill crawled down my spine, and I realized this was only the beginning of the nightmare. After the police left and the U-Haul rolled away from my beach house, I thought I had survived the worst of the storm. But no, the real storm hadn't even begun. That evening, I returned to my apartment in Nashville. I was still shaking. My mind was torn between two feelings, one half aching because I had called the police on my own family. The other half strangely lighter, as if I had finally loosened the noose I'd worn for 20 years. I set my phone on the table, planning to take a long, hot shower to relax. But the moment I slipped off my shoes, ping. My phone buzzed nonstop. 5 times, 10 times, and then, like a dam bursting, notifications flooded my screen. I thought, Tyler is probably sending more threats. But no, not just Tyler, not just my mother. It was everyone, the entire extended family, one by one, all at once. I opened my social media app. A notification sat right at the top. Tyler posted an update. I clicked, and my heart dropped into my stomach. The post was nearly a full page long, with a picture of my beach house, taken from the driveway, and a headline underneath. My own sister called the cops on our family just because we asked to stay for a few weeks. Reading it made my throat tighten. But it got worse. The post went on. Alina has a beautiful house and plenty of money, but her heart is cold. Our family asked for help, and she said no. Not only that, she changed the door code and turned on the alarm so the police would treat us like criminals. Who treats their own mother like this? It felt like acid poured down my chest. But the worst part? Tyler added one more line. A line that made me turn on every light in the room as if darkness itself might swallow me. I'm ashamed to call her my sister. Below were dozens of comments, then hundreds. My name being dragged through the mud, torn apart, insulted. Unbelievable. She's that rich and still that stingy? The house is empty. Why can't she let her family stay? What an ungrateful child. Tyler has always been such a good kid. How could she treat him like that? And worst of all, these were my relatives. People I'd eaten holiday dinners with. People I wished Happy New Year. People who hugged me when I was little. Every name, every comment, every insult felt like a needle jabbing into the same spot until the skin ripped open. I scrolled down and saw a comment that made me burst into tears instantly. It was from Aunt Caroline, my mother's sister. I'm ashamed you belong to this family, you venomous snake. My knees almost gave out. I grabbed the edge of the table to keep myself from collapsing. I whispered, venomous snake? Because I protected my own property? Because I didn't want to be used anymore? Because I dared to say no once. In my entire life? While I was still trembling. Ping, ping, ping. Messenger messages, Instagram DMs, and even emails. I opened the first one. You're rich but can't help your brother? Disgusting. The second, what kind of daughter are you? Your mother raised you, and all she asked was to let your brother stay. Evil. The third, doing this for attention, calling the cops to show you're tough? Pathetic. Each sentence was a stab. No, hundreds of stabs, all at once. The more I scrolled, the more familiar names appeared. Cousins, aunts, uncles, even people who barely ever spoke to me. Every one of them. Attacking. I wanted to scream. Do any of you even know what happened? Did any of you bother to ask me? Do you know who actually crossed the line? Why doesn't the truth matter to any of you? But I knew. Nothing I said would matter. In my family, Tyler was always the poor, struggling one, and I was always the one who had to carry the weight. If I carried, they stayed quiet. If I didn't, they attacked. The truth never had value, only the role they wanted me to play. Just when I thought I couldn't take any more, the screen lit up again. A single comment. One lone comment defending me. It was Maya, the one cousin who never depended on my mother's favoritism. She wrote, "Everyone's only hearing one side. People have limits. Don't judge so quickly." Within 2 minutes, they swarmed her. You're defending her? You must be as selfish as she is. You both deserve to be cut off from the family. I read every word, hands shaking violently. Family? This is family? A family where the moment you set a single boundary, they turn you into the villain, the traitor, the monster. I turned off my phone, but even with the screen black, the insults echoed in my ears. Ungrateful. Venomous snake. Doesn't care about her own mother? Heartless. Humiliating your own family. I sank to the floor, clutching my head. The world felt like it was crushing me. What had I ever done to deserve this? How hard had I tried my whole life to be loved? How many times had I forgiven, given, sacrificed? All so that the one moment I said no, they turned me into a monster. But in all that pain, a part of me became sharper, clearer than ever before. I realized something. Family only matters when there is respect. If all there is one-sided obligation, that's not family. That's a chain. And that night, in the storm of social media attacks and family rage, I knew I could never go back to the role they forced on me. I had stepped out of the cage, and they were furious, trying to shove me back in. But me? I had already decided. I wasn't going back. Even if I had to face all of them alone. Even if I stood in the middle of a battlefield. Because for the first time in my life, I chose me. I thought that after the social media backlash, my family would go quiet for a few days. I thought they'd need time to soothe the wounded pride that the police had crushed. I thought they'd start realizing I wasn't the obedient daughter I used to be. But I underestimated them. Because just 2 days after the online storm, I woke up to an email that sent my entire body into shock. Subject line: Property dispute and defamation. Settlement request $75,000. The sender, my mother's lawyer. Not Tyler, not some distant relative, my own mother. I opened the email, and as I read the contents, my chest tightened painfully, like something was squeezing my heart. Dear Alina, I represent Mrs. Barbara, your mother. She believes you have intentionally damaged her reputation within the community, defamed her by calling the police unnecessarily, violated a verbal agreement allowing Tyler temporary residence at the beach house, caused significant emotional distress to both her and Tyler, requested compensation, $75,000 response deadline, 10 days. I had to read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. My mother, the same woman who gave Tyler my door code, told me not to be selfish, screamed at my front door that I wasn't her daughter anymore, let me get torn apart online, watched her relatives call me a snake, heartless, ungrateful, refused to call, refused to listen, refused to apologize, was now suing me for $75,000, based on a lie that I promised to let Tyler stay. I laughed, not from joy, but the kind of laugh that comes when you're so emotionally exhausted that your body produces emptiness instead of tears. She didn't call, she didn't text, she didn't say a word. She hired a lawyer, she threw an email at me, and an invoice for $75,000. I immediately called my own attorney, Patricia. Her voice was calm, almost clinical, like she was reading the afternoon weather. Alina, breathe. I saw the email. This is a trash lawsuit, completely meritless. I asked, but my mother actually did this? She's really suing me. Patricia replied, she doesn't want to win. She wants to scare you. Scare me? I whispered. Yes. Scare you into dropping the police report. Scare you into apologizing. Scare you into letting Tyler move into the beach house. Scare you into going back to your old role. This is what we call a SLAP, strategic lawsuit against public participation. A lawsuit meant to intimidate and silence. I sank into my chair, hands trembling. I didn't want to believe my own mother was using the legal system to corner me. But Patricia continued, blunt as ever. Alina, listen to me. Your mother does not see you as an independent adult. To her, you're Tyler's lifeline. If you break that role, they will use every method they can to force you back. I swallowed hard. Heat crawled up my neck, part rage, part heartbreak. I said, Patricia, I want to respond. She asked, what kind of response? I stared at the email again, the bold $75,000 daring me to flinch. And I answered, with truth, with evidence, and if they want to fight, I'll fight. Patricia chuckled softly. I figured you'd say that. I'll draft a letter. 3 hours later, she sent me a copy of our legal response. To the representative of Mrs. Barbara, all allegations are unfounded and demonstrably false. My client never agreed to let Tyler reside at her property. We have recorded phone conversations, text messages, security system logs, police reports, camera footage showing the attempted unlawful entry, a third-party witness, Jenna, confirming lack of consent. Should your party continue, we will file counterclaims supported by full documentation. We will also pursue attorney fees. I finished reading it, and for the first time in days, I took a full, steady breath. At the end, Patricia added a razor-sharp line. Advise your client to reconsider. We are fully prepared to proceed to court. That evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. You made my mom hire a lawyer. Happy now? If you don't drop the report and let us into the beach house, she'll keep suing. You won't win. I stared at the message, feeling oddly amused. Tyler always said, my mom, as if I wasn't her child too. I replied with just 3 words. Talk to your lawyer. Less than 10 seconds later, he fired back. Bitch. I blocked his number. That night, I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling for a long time. I asked myself, how did it get this far? Is that house really worth all this chaos? Or is the house not the point at all? Maybe what they really can't stand is that I made a decision they couldn't control. And then it hit me. A truth so painful it felt physical. People don't lose their minds because you did something wrong. They lose their minds because you stopped letting them do wrong to you. When I said no, I shattered a power structure they'd built for 29 years. I broke the role of the agreeable daughter. I broke the convenience they depended on. So they retaliated. With lawyers, with social media, with cruelty. They are my family. But nothing about their behavior is family. And that's when I understood. I wasn't just fighting to protect a beach house. I was fighting to protect myself. After the $75,000 countersuit email, I thought nothing could shock me anymore. I thought I'd been beaten numb already. But when the front desk buzzer rang at my office that afternoon, I realized the human heart can always hurt more. Janet, my closest coworker, peeked into my doorway. Alina, there's a girl in the lobby. She says she's your relative. A relative? Now? My palms started sweating instantly. I walked toward the hallway, and from a distance I saw bright, fiery red hair, cropped short, bold. Maya, the misfit cousin of my family. The only one who dared to defend me under Tyler's smear post and got torn apart by the rest of the family for it. I headed toward her, and she stood up with a small, almost apologetic smile. "Hey, I hope I'm not bothering you?" Her voice was soft, but her eyes were sharp. The eyes of someone who sees far more than she says. I invited her into my office. When the door closed behind us, Maya let out a long exhale, like she'd finally taken off invisible armor. "Alina, I came because I think you need someone on your side right now." My chest tightened immediately. I had been holding up everything alone these past few days. The police incident, the online attacks, my family's rage, my mother's lawsuit. I had forgotten what it felt like to have someone actually stand with me. I sat down, trying to keep my voice steady. "Thank you. But why are you helping me? The family is attacking you just for defending me." Maya crossed her legs, looked straight at me. "Because I know exactly what Tyler is like." I stayed silent. She continued. 3 years ago, he borrowed my car. Said he'd return it in a day. He kept it for 6 weeks. Came back with dents, no gas, and 3 parking tickets. My mouth fell open. "And did he pay for the damage?" Maya let out a bitter laugh. "No. And when I asked, he told me I was putting money above family. Your mom even called me and told me not to make things hard for him." I leaned back in my chair. So it wasn't just me. Tyler wasn't just my mother's burden. He was a burden to anyone he could latch onto. Maya laughed again, the pained kind. I stayed quiet because I thought, whatever, let it go. But look. She gestured toward the air. Letting it go only makes them push further. That sentence cut through me like a blade. Then Maya said something that made my throat sting. "You're the first one who ever dared to say enough, and they're losing their minds because of it." After Maya left the office, I went home, opened my laptop, and sat at my desk. In front of me was a blank notebook. I opened it. And for the first time in my life, I did something I should have done years ago. I wrote everything down. Every time Tyler borrowed money. Every time my mother asked on his behalf. Every time I was forced to sacrifice something. I dug through old emails, old texts, bank statements. Piece by piece, I sifted through my past like gathering the broken shards of my life. And once I started writing, I couldn't stop. The first line, age 16, $3,000. Mom borrowed to pay Tyler's car debt. Then came the avalanche. Age 18, $850. Helped pay his credit card debt. Age 19, $400. Paid Tyler's rent after he got fired. Age 21, $600. Concert tickets Tyler put on my card first. Age 22, $1,500. Car repairs after he damaged my vehicle. Age 23, $2,000. Tyler's emergency fund. Age 24, $900. Utilities Tyler couldn't afford. Age 25, $1,200. An advance for family. Age 26, $4,500. Tyler's online business investment. Age 27, $3,200. Mom asked me to help him restart again. Age 28, $500. Tyler's speeding ticket Mom begged me to cover. Hours passed. The pages filled up. I totaled it up by hand first, then typed it into a calculator because I didn't trust my eyes. The number flashed on the screen. $42,650. I froze. The blood drained from my face. $42,650. In 10 years. Almost the price of a brand new car. Almost a full year of rent. Almost my entire early savings. I set the pen down, and I cried. Not because of the money. I can earn that back. I always worked hard, and I'm proud of that. I cried because of a cruel truth. For 10 years I wasn't loved. I was consumed. Tyler never saw me as a sister. My mother never saw me as a daughter. My family never saw me as a person. To them, I was a resource, a supply, a shield to keep Tyler from facing consequences. I looked at the number again. $42,650. Cold. Harsh. More honest than anything my mother has ever said to me, and I whispered, not sure to whom. Enough. This is enough. As I wiped my tears, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I heard you're writing down all of Tyler's sins. Let me warn you, if you keep slandering him, I'll sue you. Another tear rolled down my cheek, but this time not from pain. It was because now I had the evidence, and they had no idea I planned to fight this to the very end. That night, after finishing my $42,000 timeline, I went to bed exhausted, but also strangely clear. For the first time in years, I looked straight at the truth. I had been used my entire life. And now I finally had the evidence. But I didn't know that the next day, my family would decide to attack the one place I still felt safe. My job. The next morning, I arrived at work earlier than usual, hoping to avoid people's eyes after the social media fiasco. I tried burying myself in work, tweaking a pitch deck, pretending everything was normal. But only 30 minutes later. Alina, can you step into the meeting room for a moment? It was Janet from the next desk. She looked at me with concern, the kind of concern that makes the stomach drop. I stood up. It felt like my soul left my body. When I walked into the large conference room, I froze immediately. Melanie, the regional director, Gerald, HR representative from headquarters, and a thick stack of files sitting in the center of the table. My breath stuttered. My stomach twisted into a knot. Gerald gestured for me to sit, his voice polite but very serious. Alina, we've received some concerning reports. We need to discuss them with you. Not a tone used for gentle reminders. I swallowed hard. What reports? Gerald opened the folder. It felt like every page he flipped sucked the air out of the room. He read, "We received anonymous complaints stating that you used company resources for personal matters, made threatening phone calls from company lines, and caused unprofessional disruptions at work." I stared at him, stunned. My mind echoed one single thought. No way. Melanie spoke, her voice gentler but still firm. Alina, what's going on with your family? My eyes burned. I didn't want to cry in front of my superiors, but the sense of betrayal, being dragged through mud by the people who should protect me, was scorching. I inhaled deeply. This is personal. They're trying to sabotage me because I wouldn't let them move into my private beach house. Gerald raised a brow. The report also claims you called the police to threaten your own family. I actually laughed. A painful, broken laugh that escaped before I could stop it. No. They tried to force their way into my house. I changed the code. They still came. I said no. They showed up with a U-Haul and tried to enter anyway. The alarms and police were triggered by my security system. I pulled out my phone and handed Gerald the video. Melanie leaned closer to watch the footage of Tyler, my mother, and two strange men outside my door while the alarm blared. No one spoke for 15 seconds. The silence in the room was thick enough to hear the AC humming. Finally, Gerald set the phone down. Clearly, these anonymous reports were sent with malicious intent. Melanie touched my shoulder gently. Alina, who sent these? I clenched my fists. My family. They both looked at me, not with judgment, but with deep, genuine sympathy. Gerald said, "These will be marked as malicious and false. You're not under investigation." I gasped like someone had just loosened a noose around my neck. Melanie leaned in, her tone firm but kind. "Alina, this is no longer a family issue. This is harassment. If they keep contacting you, sabotaging your workplace, or damaging your reputation, you have every right to protect yourself legally. I nodded, but her next sentence left me speechless. From now on, if you receive any email, message, or call from them, notify HR immediately. We will stand with you. It was a sentence I'd waited my whole life to hear. Not from a company, but from what a real family should be. After the meeting, I returned to my desk, eyes still red. Janet placed a hot cup of tea in front of me. Family stuff? I nodded. She sighed. Sometimes family is more toxic than enemies. The words punched me in the chest, because they were painfully true. That afternoon, I thought things might calm down. But no, when I clocked out and checked my phone, 10 missed calls, 7 voicemails, all from unknown numbers. I opened the first voicemail. My mother's voice burst out, furious, shaking with rage. You brought family business into your job? You trying to shame me in front of strangers? I didn't raise you to be this cruel. Second voicemail, Tyler snarling. You think you won? Let me tell you, I'll drag you down. Third voicemail, a relative I couldn't even recognize. People like you don't deserve a family, don't deserve your job, don't deserve your perfect little life. I stood in the office parking lot, phone trembling in my hand until I nearly dropped it. The evening wind hit my face, cold, sharp, cutting. And I realized they didn't just want my house. They wanted to destroy me. My reputation, my career, even my peace. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. A switch flipped. If they wanted to turn me into the enemy, then I would become the kind of enemy they could never defeat. That night, after completing the $42,000 timeline, I went to sleep in a state of absolute exhaustion, but also a strange sense of clarity. For the first time in years, I saw the truth without flinching. I had been used my entire life. And now I finally had proof. But I had no idea that the next day, my family would attack the last place I still felt safe. My home, my peace, my sanity. Because that evening, as I returned to my apartment drowning in despair, attacked by family, relatives, social media, and even at work, I stepped out of the shower, hair still wet, when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. New message from Dorothy Harris. I frowned. Dorothy Harris? The name was familiar, but I had never spoken to her. I opened the message. Hi, Alina. I'm Dorothy, Tyler's ex-girlfriend, from about 5 years ago. I saw what's happening with your family online. And I think you should know, you're not the first. I froze. My hands began to shake. Not the first? My heart pounded as I scrolled down. Dorothy continued. Tyler did to me exactly what he's doing to you. The same patterns, the same manipulation, the same escalation. It's frightening how similar it is. My entire body turned cold. I typed back immediately. What do you mean? What did Tyler do? Not even 30 seconds later, my phone rang. I hesitated, then picked up. A woman's voice, low and tired, came through. Alina, I'm so sorry you're going through this, but I have to tell you the truth. I sat down, heart constricting. Go ahead. Dorothy drew in a deep breath, the kind someone takes before digging up something they've buried too long. Years ago, Tyler moved into my place, the exact same way he tried to move into your beach house. I closed my eyes, not because I was surprised, but because I already feared this was coming. Dorothy continued. He told me his family was going through a hard time, that he had nowhere else to go, that he only needed a few days. And then? I asked, my voice barely holding. A few days turned into 3 months. I clenched my jaw until it hurt. Dorothy went on. For those 3 months, he didn't pay a cent of rent. Not utilities, not groceries, nothing. He just stayed there, playing games, complaining, letting me handle everything. A sick feeling coiled in my stomach. It was exactly the Tyler I knew. What happened next? Dorothy paused, a long, trembling silence, before saying, when I finally told him he needed to leave, Tyler punched a hole in the wall. Then he screamed at me that I didn't know how to put family first. I covered my mouth with my hand. I didn't know whether I wanted to sob or throw the phone across the room. But Dorothy wasn't done. And then his mother, Barbara, called me. My eyes snapped open. She kept speaking. She tried to convince me that Tyler was just going through a hard phase, that I should be understanding, that a good woman supports her man. My stomach twisted. It was the same script my mother had used on me for years, word for word. Manipulation, dressed as family advice. Dorothy exhaled shakily. When I refused, she changed her tone. She told me that if I forced Tyler out, she would sue me for emotional distress. I shot upright. What? Dorothy let out a bitter laugh. Yes, they threatened legal action, just like they're doing to you. I pressed my hand to my forehead. The room felt like it was spinning. Tyler wasn't just messed up. He wasn't just irresponsible. He had a pattern, a history, a trail of victims he left behind. And my mother, the woman I had desperately hoped would care for me, was actually his enabler, his accomplice, his shield. Dorothy's voice softened. I was too scared to fight them. I let Tyler stay another month, and when he finally left, her voice cracked. He took 2 pieces of my jewelry. I froze, completely still. I filed a police report, she said, but Tyler claimed they were gifts, and I didn't have any way to disprove it. A tear slipped down my hand. I gripped the phone tightly. Dorothy, thank you. Thank you for telling me. She spoke gently. Alina, I saw what your family is doing to you. I saw how they are attacking you publicly, emotionally and legally. I stayed silent back then, and I regret it every day. I won't let Tyler hurt another person the way he hurt me. My throat tightened. Would you testify if this goes to court? Dorothy didn't hesitate for even a second. I will, absolutely. Whatever you need. When the call ended, I sat there in the dim of my living room, the glow of the streetlights cutting soft lines across the walls. And for the first time in days, I felt no guilt, no confusion, no shame, only clarity. Tyler was not a victim. My mother was not a poor woman abandoned by her cruel daughter. They were a team, a duo that demolished the lives of others to avoid confronting their own failures. And I, once again, had almost become the next casualty. But this time I had evidence, a witness, a lawyer, and most importantly, the will to fight. I looked out toward the balcony and whispered, Tyler, I'm not the sister you can use anymore. The call from Dorothy, Tyler's ex, felt like a door opening, a door I never wanted to walk through, a door filled with the raw, unfiltered truth about my family. Tyler doesn't change. My mother doesn't change. And if I don't act, they will never stop. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my exhausted face. I saw, eyes red from too much crying and too little sleep, shoulders slumped from pressure, and a woman pushed to her absolute limit. But in that same mirror, I also saw something else. Something rising. Something no longer easy to break. A strength I had never allowed myself to use in all 29 years of my life. I murmured, almost a vow to myself. If they want a war, I'll give them one. Upper 1. Hiring a private investigator, gathering evidence and monitoring. The next day, I met my attorney, Patricia, at her office. She skimmed through the thick folder I brought, the $42,000 timeline, screenshots, threatening emails. Then Patricia looked up. Alina, we need to prepare for 2 fronts, legal action and personal safety. I swallowed hard. What do you mean? Tyler has punched walls before, Patricia reminded me, referring to Dorothy's story. He has shown violent behavior, and right now he's extremely unstable. A shiver ran down my spine. Patricia pulled out a business card and slid it toward me. This is a private investigator I trust. I want him to start documenting any harassment, stalking, or threatening behavior from your family. I held the card, and my heart felt heavy as stone. This meant one thing. My own family had officially become a threat I needed evidence against. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I nodded once. Do it. 2. Filing for a restraining order. The final line. That afternoon, Patricia and I went to the courthouse to file a restraining order. I filled out the paperwork slowly, each field like a blade carving into me. My mother's full name, Tyler's full name, details of the break-in attempt, threatening messages, the lawsuit email, the workplace sabotage, the social media smear campaign, Dorothy's testimony. Each box I checked felt like tearing open a fresh wound, but I kept going, because no one else was going to protect me. Patricia placed a hand on my shoulder. Alina, I know this is hard, but with what you've provided, the chances of approval are very high. I nodded, swallowing the bitter taste in my mouth. You know, I whispered, when I was a kid, my mom used to say, I only want what's best for you. And now I'm asking the court to protect me from her. Patricia's eyes softened. You're not wrong. You're saving yourself. 3. Upgrading security. When fear becomes instinct. I returned home feeling a coil of tension wrapped around my spine. I no longer believed Tyler would stop at messages. Dorothy's words replayed in my mind. He punched a hole in my wall. He screamed in my face. His mother threatened to sue me. I stepped through the doorway of my apartment and made a decision instantly. I needed more security. Now. I called the locksmith and replaced every lock. I installed new door cameras, hallway cameras, and a balcony cam. I bought a 4K smart doorbell. I added motion sensors. I bought pepper spray and kept it in my purse. When the technician asked, "What level of security do you want?" I didn't hesitate. The highest you offer. When they left, my apartment felt like a miniature fortress. And yet, I still trembled. I still imagined Tyler showing up in the parking garage, at my door, at work. Not because I believed he would physically harm me, but because he had proven one thing. When Tyler wants something, he doesn't stop. That night, I locked the door twice, then 3 times. By the time I got into bed, I realized I was gripping the security remote like a life raft. I activated vacation mode, full monitoring. Movement alerts, sound alerts, everything. Even a stray cat or falling leaf would trigger a notification. I knew I was acting like someone traumatized, but I also knew a person who has been hurt too many times develops instincts that never lie. 4. The night before the war, I was ready. I sat by the window, staring at the Nashville skyline, the lights glowing like faint stars. In my hand was the stack of documents Patricia had organized: beach house security footage, recorded calls, the $42,000 timeline, Dorothy's testimony, my mother's lawsuit email, Tyler's threats, proof they sabotaged my job, the restraining order paperwork. I looked at the file and whispered, 29 years. And for the first time, I'm choosing myself. I knew there was no going back after this. I would never again be the good daughter, the understanding child, the sacrificing sister. And my mother, Tyler. They would never accept that. But I wasn't the weak Alina I used to be. I was the woman who worked 70-hour weeks to build her own life. The woman who bought a beach house through sheer grit. The woman who survived 20 years of exploitation. And finally, the woman who said no. No to manipulation. No to guilt traps. No to one-sided sacrifice. There was a storm coming, a violent one. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I lifted my glass of water, looked at my reflection in the window and said, Alina, they chose war. Now it's your turn. Court day. I remember every detail the way someone remembers a nightmare they never want to relive. That morning, the sky over Nashville was a dull gray. No sunlight, no warmth. The weather mirrored my state of mind. Cold, heavy, and full of dread. I wore a simple navy suit and tied my hair back. Not to look good, but to look calm, composed, unshakable. Patricia was waiting for me outside the courthouse. She looked me over and asked, "Are you ready?" I nodded. Ready? No. But I'd gone too far to turn back. When we stepped into the courtroom, I saw them immediately. My mother and Tyler. Sitting together in the same row, beside their attorney. My mother was wearing a pastel floral dress, the kind she always wore when she wanted to appear fragile, gentle, the heartbroken mother. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, though I didn't see a single tear. Tyler sat beside her with his arms crossed, tense, hiding his anger behind the familiar "I'm the victim" expression. When they saw me, they didn't look like family. They looked at me like I was an enemy, like I had committed treason, like I had dared to challenge the natural order of things. I looked at them for exactly 1 second, then turned away. I wasn't here for a stare-down. I was here to take my life back. When Judge Morrison, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, entered the room, everything fell silent. She glanced at the file in front of her and announced, "Case, Alina requests restraining orders against Tyler and Barbara. Let's begin." Tyler straightened. My mother inhaled like she was preparing for a dramatic performance. Patricia stepped forward, calm and precise. "Your Honor, we have substantial evidence that my client has been harassed, threatened, and had her property trespassed upon." Judge Morrison nodded. "Submit it." Patricia placed a thick stack of documents on the table. Security footage, recorded calls, threatening messages, the police report, Jenna's statement, Dorothy's statement, the $42,000 timeline. My mother visibly flinched when she saw Dorothy's name. So she did know who Dorothy was. She knew exactly what kind of history Tyler had. And she still protected him. Then it was my turn to speak. My legs trembled slightly, but my voice was steady, I told the court everything. From the call, "We're moving in on Friday," to the U-Haul in front of my beach house, to the blaring alarm, to their attempts to sabotage my job, to the threats. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just told the truth. And the truth carried weight. It dropped into the room like stone. Then came their turn. My mother's attorney stood. "Your Honor, this is merely a family misunderstanding. Families argue. It happens. My client, a devoted mother, is being unfairly portrayed." Judge Morrison raised an eyebrow, voice sharp. "Devoted enough to enter her daughter's property without permission?" The attorney fumbled. "Your Honor, she believed Alina had implicitly consented." The judge flipped through the file. In the audio recording, I hear Alina clearly say, "No. You are not allowed. Do not come." "How do you explain that?" The attorney froze. My mother jumped in, voice trembling. "She didn't mean it. She was upset. Alina has always been emotional." Judge Morrison cut her off. "Mrs. Barbara, no means no. You do not get to reinterpret your daughter's boundaries." Tyler clenched his fists. Clearly, he didn't expect the judge to be immune to their usual poor mother, troubled son act. Then it was Tyler's turn. His lawyer tried. Tyler only wanted to talk to his sister. He never intended to threaten her. The judge's eyes narrowed. "Is that so? Then what does the message, 'You'll regret this. The family never forgets,' mean?" The room fell silent. Tyler took a shaky breath. "I said that because I was emotional." The judge lifted a page. "And the recording of you at her workplace saying, 'You're nothing without this family,' also emotional?" Tyler had no answer. My mother glared at him, silently screaming, "Say something!" But he couldn't. The evidence was too strong. After nearly 40 minutes of questioning, Judge Morrison tapped her gavel lightly. She looked directly at my mother and Tyler. "You have shown a lack of respect for boundaries, for the law, and for Alina's rights. This court will not ignore that." My heart stopped. Then she delivered the verdict. A restraining order for 2 years against both Barbara and Tyler. You may not come within 500 feet of Alina. You may not call, text, email, or contact her in any way. You may not post about her on social media. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. My mother's mouth fell open. Her face drained of color as if she'd been stabbed. Tyler's face flushed a deep red, jaw twitching with fury. But the judge wasn't finished. She turned to Tyler. "Additionally, I am forwarding your case to the prosecutor for harassment and threatening behavior. You may face criminal charges." Tyler shot to his feet. "What? But I—" Bang! The gavel hit. Court dismissed. I stood there in disbelief. Patricia touched my arm gently. "Congratulations," she whispered. "You won." But I didn't smile. I looked at my mother, the woman who gave birth to me, as she stared at me with pure hatred. Her lips moved silently, but I read them clearly. "You'll pay for this." Tyler glared at me like he wanted to rip me apart, but I didn't shake. I didn't gasp for air. I didn't cry. I simply turned away and walked out, each step echoing against the cold courtroom floor. For the first time in my life, I walked without their chains. When the courtroom door closed behind me, I thought I would burst into tears. Tears of relief. Tears of release. Tears of victory. But I didn't. I didn't cry. I simply stood there in the cold courthouse hallway, feeling like I had just walked out of a battle so long and brutal that my soul was too exhausted to react. Patricia looked at me with a rare smile, a victorious one. 2-year restraining order. Your mother's lawsuit dismissed. Tyler's case forwarded to the DA. Alina, this is an overwhelming win. An overwhelming win. I repeated those words in my mind, trying to make myself believe them. For the first time in my life, I had won against my own family. Not to prove a point, not to beat them, but to protect my right to simply exist. But victory is never sweet right away. As I stepped out of the courthouse and into the parking lot, the sky suddenly opened up, a heavy, cold rain pouring down. I got into my car, closed the door, and finally let out the breath I'd been holding all morning. And right then, my phone rang. It was Maya. I answered. Her voice was tight with suspense. Alina, what happened? I've been praying you'd win. I closed my eyes. I won. They're banned for 2 years. And Tyler's case is going to the DA. Silence. Then Maya began to cry. Thank God. Finally, that family met a boundary. That family. She said it like she wasn't part of them anymore. Like I wasn't part of them anymore. And maybe she was right. 1. The victory spread in a way I never expected. That night, I logged into an online support group for survivors of family manipulation, a place where I'd silently read posts for months without having the courage to share my own story. This time, I wrote everything. No name, no identifiable details, no photos, just the truth. About Tyler, about my mother, about the $42,000, about the break-in, about the hearing, about the restraining order. Within 5 hours, my post had more than 3,000 interactions. Strangers wrote to me, "Thank you. You gave me courage. I'm going through something similar." Family isn't always a safe place. One comment stayed with me. You didn't just win for yourself. You won for everyone who's ever been used by their own blood. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Long enough that I didn't notice the tears falling until they hit my wrist. 2. Relatives reacted. Another storm? No. This time, I stood firm. The next morning, I got a message from Aunt Caroline, the same aunt who called me a venomous snake. Alina, I want to talk. I didn't reply. 3 hours later. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. No sense of closure. Just emptiness. That afternoon, Maya called. Guess what? The whole family is in chaos. They can't believe Tyler got warned by the court. Some of them are yelling at your mom for dragging everyone into this mess. I let out a quiet laugh. Not a happy laugh, but a freed one. Finally, they see something real. Maya sighed. They only see part of it, but you don't need them to understand everything. You just need to save yourself. Her words became the rope that pulled me out of the emotional fog. 3. Support at work. Something I never expected. The next week, I was called into a meeting room again, but this time it wasn't disciplinary. My direct supervisor smiled at me. Alina, everything is clear now. The company appreciates your professionalism throughout all of this. Then he slid a folder toward me. A promotion offer. I blinked. I'm being promoted. He nodded. You've managed major projects exceptionally well, and especially handled personal turmoil without letting it affect your work. That's the kind of strength we value. For days, I'd feared losing my job. But instead, I climbed a step higher. The door my family slammed shut. Another door opened wider. 4. A letter from my mother, and I did something I've never done in my life. A week after the hearing, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. But the handwriting, I knew instantly. My mother's. I stood there in the drizzle for a long moment. Rain gathering on my shoulders. I knew what the letter would say. Blame. Accusations. Curses. Or perhaps an apology meant to manipulate. And for the first time in my life, I tore the letter in half and dropped it into the trash. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't ache. I felt no guilt. I felt free. 5. Victory isn't loud. Victory is silent, calm, peaceful. That night, I stood on my balcony, cool wind brushing my skin, Nashville glowing beneath me. I asked myself, is this what winning feels like? An overwhelming win? Then I realized, victory wasn't the judge siding with me. It wasn't Tyler's humiliation. It wasn't the restraining order. Victory was no longer being afraid of them losing all power over me, being able to make decisions for my own life, not being chained by guilt, breaking a manipulation cycle that lasted decades. That was the true victory, the overwhelming win. Not on the paperwork, not in the courtroom, but in my heart. I was no longer the daughter bending until she broke, no longer the sister carrying everyone's mistakes. I was Alina, a woman who lives for herself. And for the first time in 29 years, I felt peace. People say that after a storm, the sky clears again. But for me, after the storm, the sky didn't just clear. It grew wider, higher, and so breathtakingly beautiful that it stunned me. I had spent half my life merely existing for other people. But once the restraining order took effect, once I escaped the toxic vortex my family created, I finally began to understand what it feels like to truly live. No fear, no guilt. No one suffocating me with the word family. 1. Selling the beach house, a difficult but necessary choice. After the court hearing, I drove to Wilmington to see the beach house one last time. The place I had once dreamed about. The place my family tried to steal. When I opened the door, the scent of wood, ocean air, and warm sunlight filled my lungs. I remembered sleeping on the long couch with a book in my lap, mornings making coffee while waves crashed outside. But mixed with those memories were the invisible cracks. My mother screaming at the door, Tyler raising a rock as if he'd smash the glass. The echo of the alarms still ringing in my mind, I stood in the living room, placed my hand on the wooden table, and whispered, I love this place, but I don't belong to it anymore. A month later, I signed the papers. The market was strong. I even made a profit. When the money hit my account, instead of regret, I felt light. I didn't sell the memories. I let go of the ghosts attached to them. 2. A mountain cabin where my soul began to heal. After weeks of searching, I bought a small cabin deep in the Smoky Mountains, about 2 hours from Nashville. The first time I stepped onto the property, I knew this was where my heart wanted to rest. No traffic noise, no nosy neighbors, no one with the door code, no one screaming, "You owe this family." Only forest wind. Only the sound of a creek behind the house. Only the scent of pine drifting through the morning air. The cabin had floor-to-ceiling windows facing an endless stretch of green. When I first stood there, I laughed. A light, honest laugh I hadn't heard from myself in years. This is my home. I decorated it with things that made me genuinely happy. A tall bookshelf, a box of paintbrushes, soft wool blankets, wood-scented candles, a cozy kitchen, and a deep armchair facing the forest. And then I did something I never imagined doing before. I adopted a dog. Cooper. A shepherd lab mix with gentle eyes and a sad past. He clung to me like a soul that finally found safety. One morning, I sat on the porch drinking tea. Cooper rested his head on my knee. The forest was silent, as if holding us both. And I thought, if peace had a shape, it would look like this morning. 3. My career, from surviving to thriving, I thought that after everything, I would slow down. But the opposite happened. Paradoxically, everything I survived made me sharper, stronger, more decisive than ever. I no longer worked to escape my family. I worked because I genuinely loved what I did. When I became senior director, I got to lead a young, passionate team. I taught them not just marketing, but boundaries, balance, and self-respect. One day, a junior employee asked, "How do you stay so calm under pressure?" I smiled at her. Because I've survived pressure 100 times heavier than anything at work. She didn't understand. But I did. After living in fear of my own family, deadlines and clients meant nothing. The most surprising thing? Colleagues started looking to me as a role model. People who once only saw me in meetings now came to me for advice about balancing life and work. I realized my story, painful as it was, could help others stand stronger. 4. A new circle. People who truly care for me. Sometimes Maya drives up the mountain to visit. She says my cabin feels like a detox center for toxic energy. One evening, she watched me laugh while playing with Cooper and said, "Alina, you're living the life you should have had all along." I looked at the trees, the sun filtering through the branches, the vast sky stretching without limits, and I whispered, "Yeah, I know." The best part? I'm no longer afraid of my phone ringing. No longer flinch at email notifications. No longer live with the fear that someone sees me as an ATM. I live somewhere they can't reach me. Not just geographically, but emotionally. 5. The moment I realized I didn't just survive. I won. One evening, as the sky burned orange behind the mountains, I sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, listening to crickets sing. Cooper snored softly beside me, and I realized I hadn't run away from them. I had returned to myself. I stepped out of the hell I once mistook for family. I built a small world where I didn't have to earn love by breaking myself, where simply being me was enough. And most importantly, I no longer felt guilty for living my own life. I survived. I rose. I won. Not by fighting, not by revenge, but by choosing peace. I used to believe that family was the safest place, the only shelter when life was storming down. I used to believe that if I just tried a bit harder, endured a bit longer, gave a bit more, then eventually they would see my worth. But I was wrong. Painfully wrong. Wrong to the point I almost lost my entire life. Now, sitting in my cabin in the mountains, Cooper sleeping on my legs, the night breeze whispering across the porch, I look back on those 29 years with a clarity I've never had before. Family is not a license for people to hurt you. Family is not a privilege to cross your boundaries. Family is not a moral weapon to force you into sacrifice. And the greatest lesson I've ever paid dearly to learn is this: blood does not guarantee love, sacrifice does not guarantee appreciation, and endurance never creates kindness. 1. Toxic family doesn't need a reason to attack you, only a reason to lose control. For years, I tried to be the good daughter. When they needed money, I gave. When they needed help, I showed up. When they were wrong, I stayed silent. All in exchange for, what? A warm memory? A simple thank you? A little affection? No. All I got was more expectations, more demands, more weight on my shoulders. And the moment I said no for the first time in my life, they exploded. Not because I did something wrong, but because I was no longer available to be used. That's the truth no one tells you. When someone has been using you long enough, they will call you a traitor the moment you stop allowing it. 2. When family turns you into an object, you must save yourself. The day I filed for the restraining order, I felt so guilty I could barely breathe. I cried the entire night thinking, am I a terrible daughter? But then I realized I had been their daughter for 29 years, and not once did they treat me as someone who needed love. I was an ATM, a debt container, a human shield, Tyler's safety net, my mother's excuse for her own unhappiness. They didn't love me. They loved what they could take from me. And when I was pushed to the edge, I understood no one was coming to save me. So I saved myself. And I'm proud of that. 3. Cutting them off isn't cruelty. It's survival. The moment I tore my mother's letter in half and dropped it into the trash, it wasn't betrayal. It was liberation. I had lived under the shadow of guilt they built for far too long. Cutting ties, walking away, not looking back. That wasn't cruelty. That was self-defense. And I realized I would rather stand alone in the deep forest than stand in the middle of a family that wants to suffocate me. 4. Real family never demands you kneel after the restraining order, after Tyler's case was sent to the DA, after my mother was forced into silence. My life opened into a chapter I never dreamed of. Peace, respect, a promotion, a home that belonged to me. The freedom to love myself. And I understood. Real family is like my cabin. Peaceful, open, unpossessive. Toxic family is like the beach house I left behind. Beautiful, but haunted. You must choose the place your heart can live, not the place you're forced to stand. 5. I don't hate them, but I will never return. Hatred keeps you tied to the people who hurt you. I don't want that. But forgiveness does not mean repeating history. It does not mean opening the door again. It does not mean giving them another chance to wreck me. I don't hate my mother. I don't hate Tyler. I simply no longer have a place for them in my life. 6. A message for you, the one listening to my story. If your family treats you cruelly, belittles you, uses you, if they control you with guilt and the phrase, your blood, if you're always the one giving, while they only take, remember this. You are not a traitor for protecting yourself. You are not a bad person for saying no. You are not ungrateful for leaving a family that is hurting you. Family is not where you were born. Family is where you are safe, where you are loved without paying a price, where you can be yourself without fear. If the people who share your blood can't offer that, you have every right to walk away. I once thought I'd die inside that toxic cycle, but I didn't. I survived. I escaped. I rebuilt. And I'm stronger than ever. If I could do it, so can you. Looking back at everything now, I've realized something it took almost my entire youth to understand. Family is not always a safe place. Sometimes, The very people who share your blood are the ones who cut you the deepest. But I've also learned this. I have the right to choose again. The right to say no. The right to walk away from toxic bonds. And most importantly, the right to live a life where I don't need anyone's permission to have peace. If my story made you pause, made you think, or touched a part of your heart you've been trying to ignore, then feel free to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Who knows? Maybe the next chapter of my journey will give you the courage to protect yourself too, the way I once had to. Thank you for staying until the end. You deserve peace, just as much as I do.